Welcome everyone to Dead Talk Live, and tonight we have our special guest, Christine Elise McCarthy. Christine, we have connected. How are you doing tonight?
I am very well. I'm sorry. I want to confess to the world that I blew you off by mistake at 3 o'clock today or 2 o'clock. I thought it was three and it was two. And I was so proud of myself for showing up at three and I was wrong. So
It
I am
happens. It
genuinely
happens.
sorry.
It's good to be busy, and you know, it's better than not having anything or sitting by a phone and just waiting for a phone call. So,
It's good.
congratulations.
And I had two auditions. Auditions are a thing. And now you got to self tape them and edit them yourself and upload them yourself. It's a whole bigger
Oh
process
yeah.
than it used to be. So.
Well, let me ask you: do you have somebody who does like the editing of your auditions, or are you tech savvy enough to do it on your own?
Well, I've had the cooking channel for a couple of years now, and I also worked in post production for a long time.
Good.
In reality TV, I worked on the on Elevator actually, the Saska twins game show they had for a while. I did post production on that, so I'm pretty well versed in the post in the editing world. So yeah,
That's awesome. You mentioned
and
your
boring
channel.
me to be on your show right now.
I actually checked out your YouTube channel yesterday, and you have a great channel about vegan, and giving tips and techniques to people. When did you start doing that?
I did a blog. I was pescatarian for like 30 years. I gave up meat in the 80s. And 8 years ago, I don't really know that maybe 8 years ago, I started a blog on a whim. I woke up, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do a blog because everyone likes, I cook and I photograph and everybody says like, well, that looks really good. What is it? And I thought, oh, a blog would be a good way to to direct them to somewhere and answer the question for them. Like, here's what it is. Here's how you make it. And go crazy. And I did that for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years, and that began to feel really stagnant. I feel like I'd done as much as I could in that forum. And then again, like on July 5th one year, I woke up like 3 or 4 years ago and I was like, I'm gonna do a channel. And I didn't have a mic, I didn't have a camera, I hadn't investigated like editing software for my desktop. And the first, like, I just did it. And the first two episodes are very, very rudimentary. And the first 12 are sort of technically challenged as far as sound goes. But after that, I got it together. And it's like 150 episodes on the channel, primarily vegan cooking, some cocktails, some Chucky stuff, some 90210 stuff, but primarily vegan cooking. But vegan cooking, for those who are just sort of vegan curious, it's not like a preachy vegan channel. It's meant to like have people who are wanting to do meatless Mondays, or I've got a friend who had a heart attack and is a medically induced vegan. I have friends whose kids come back from college and they're vegan and they don't know what to cook for them or whatever. So there's a lot of reasons people would be curious about what vegan food is, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
also and it's also obviously very good for animals and great for the planet, though. I think people don't realize how much water is involved in animal agriculture, is what they call it.
And
So anyway, yeah,
for people who want to check it out, what's the name of your YouTube channel?
it's delightful, delicious, to lovely. But if you go to videovegan.com, that's the URL to get there directly.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be like, sort of familiar dishes veganized.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to like make dinner and somebody at the table is vegan and nobody else is, but you want everyone to enjoy the same meal without having to make two, that's the channel sort of geared toward. So
I
I
totally
do a
get it.
lot of, go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I totally get how you got started. I started doing this. I have I had no background in entertainment. I was just a fan, a viewer. One night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I did it really late so nobody could see me. I started doing a live stream just to check it out. Well, 20 months later, here we are talking. It's crazy how some stuff just falls into place. And it also says in your Instagram profile, you are a writer, author as well.
Yeah, I wrote for TV a little bit. I wrote a couple of episodes of 90210. I wrote a couple of pilots that didn't get made, but I wrote 3 episodes of 90210 that did get produced, and I wrote a novel I wrote a dirty comedy novel called Bathing and a Single Girl, which is available for $10 on Amazon, or like 2 or 3 if you have a Kindle or a Kindle, a tablet, a reading
Mm-hmm.
tablet kind of a thing. If you go to bathingbook.com, there's a tab there called, it says the film. It's a 10-minute short film that I did first. And it's sort of, it works really well as a trailer for the book. So if you like the movie, know that the book is way funnier and a lot raunchier. The book it's not erotica. It's not sexy at all. It's not erotica. It's like Larry David wrote a book about dating. I flatter myself, but it's really that sort of sensibility. It's more cranky and everything goes wrong.
Now,
And
you brought up 90210, and a lot of people know you as Emily from 90210, aka Brandon's girlfriend. um, my first question is, you did Child's Play 2 first, back in 1990, I believe that came out. Do you attribute Child's Play 2 as to sort of giving you that kickstart where you had, I mean, a huge list of credits in the 90s? You were a hot item back in the 90s and into your career now. But good looking back, is Child's Play 2 what you would say got it all started for you?
that's hard to say. I didn't feel any particular tick in my ease of my audition, like what I got, the level of what I was going in for, or anything. It certainly didn't hurt. Horror films, I think, have more respect now than they used to
Mm-hmm.
back in the day. So while that film, I'm proud of it, I don't think the town paid attention to it necessarily, as far as like, oh, who's this actress in this movie that just came out? It wasn't like it was E.T. or something. So I don't know. It's hard to say. My agent at the time could better answer whether her calls got taken more easily after the release of that movie. I personally didn't feel a big jump. I did feel the jump after 90210.
And now it leads me to my next question. 90210, huge show. I mean, I
Yeah.
watched it every week religiously. It was part of my teenage years growing up. Did take us back to that time. I'm assuming more people, when you were walking down the street, recognized you more as Emily as opposed to Kyle from Child's Play 2.
I never got recognized as Kyle back in the day. But Emily, because in all fairness to Kyle, it was a feature. It had its little run. It did very well. Obviously, they wouldn't have made a third one, and 7 ultimately. But it didn't have this massive cultural like phenomenon impact on America like 90210 did. And also Kyle's look wasn't especially dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
Emily Valentine's kind of was that short hair with the blonde roots. It was a much more identifiable look.
Yeah.
And the show was like they were on the cover of Rolling Stone. Like it was like Jason and Luke would show up in a mall and girls would trample each other
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to get.
I
It was
remember.
a whole different level of exposure, and my look was much more defined. So yeah, my first time being recognized as Emily, I happened to be in New York City with a friend whose name was actually Emily, and we're walking down the street and people are yelling Emily, Emily, and she's looking and she's like, I don't know those people. Do you know those people? And it took us a couple of blocks of that to realize that I was the Emily they were talking to. So that's the first show that I had that sort of street side recognition from.
Now, no, staying on 90210 for a little bit, of course, it was a big hot show in the 90s with teens, and it's still somewhat relevant today. It's, it never went away. It's still there. It's still very popular today. Were you excited? I believe you were in like a total of like 24 episodes. When you did get cast for Emily, did you feel the pressure of coming on to a big franchise like, well, not a franchise, but a huge show like 210, which spawned Melrose Plays and whatnot? Did that pressure get to you? Did you feel the tension at all?
First of all, I only did like 13 episodes. I didn't do
Okay.
24. I did way fewer. I did like 7 in season 2, and then 2 more in seasons 4 and 5. I did very few episodes of that show. And of course I felt the pressure. I was, an aspiring actress that wanted to establish herself. I wanted to move on to be a big film actress. That was my goal at the time, because back in the day, you couldn't do TV and film. It had to be one or the other. And that's changed entirely at this point in time. In Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston, like these, Laura Dern, the A-list actresses are doing television now, but that wasn't the case back then.
Reese and Jennifer are co-hosting a new show together.
30 years ago, you could, if you were on TV, you couldn't get a feature, and if you were in features, you wouldn't consider doing TV. Now you kind of have to do both, or you can't do either. So anyway, yeah, of course I felt the pressure. It was incredibly intimidating to walk onto that set with people who's been on the cover of every magazine. You're standing in the supermarket to buy some tomatoes, and there's their faces. It's impossible not to be intimidated by that. And my first episode, it was just the one. The one had to go well before they would give me more, and that was true on ER too. I did one with a promise that if it went well, there'd be more. So of course I felt pressure, but I feel pressure on every set. It's scary always. So the fear level in reality on a set is not any higher. It's kind of like I'm just doing the best I can fucking do, no matter what. Yep. Whether it's just one episode without a promise of more, or one with a promise of more. When I'm bringing it, I'm bringing the best I can. Hopefully that works. But yeah, of course I felt the pressure. Of course I did.
Looking back now to the beginning of your career, do you feel like you're more known as for Kyle and your role in the Child's Play / Chucky franchise, or more like other stuff like 90210, you mentioned ER? When you look back for yourself personally, which body of work are you most proud of and you are very proud to be associated with?
All of it. I'm proud to be associated with all of it. Every single one of those jobs you just listed, and many more that you didn't, are all enormous gifts for me. I've never been an A-list actress. I've never been somebody that gets to pick and choose. I'm a girl that, like, if you offer me a job and I don't find the job embarrassing, if I don't have to get naked or I don't find it embarrassing on some other level, the answer is pretty much yes. So, and I'm shucking and jiving. I'm like clawing, for every job that I get. So I'm grateful for and enjoyed all of them. The two that have had the greatest longevity for me are obviously 90210 and Chucky, because 2 years ago we did a reboot of 90210, and I was lucky enough, kind of like with this Chucky franchise, with infinity of characters to bring back. I have both 90210 and Chucky. There's a lot of people they could have chosen to bring back, and in both cases I was in the short list and got to come back, and that's like a fucking lottery win. And I'm incredibly grateful. And in both cases I have family. The people that I met 30 years ago on both projects are people that are still in my life every day. Jason Priestley and his wife and their kids are like that's who I spend my holidays with. Wow. They're truly my family. And Alex Vincent I talk to him every single day. He lives in Florida and I live in Los Angeles, but Alex is like my real little brother. We truly are. I think we have a closer relationship in real life than Kyle and Andy do, even on camera. And I stayed in touch with Don Mancini too through the interviewing years. And I also met Jennifer Tilly doing theater before I even did Chucky, before I did 90210. In 1988 or 89, I did a play in a theater where Jennifer was doing a play too. So I've known Jennifer before either of those jobs. So they're enormously sentimental for me. I'm a sentimental person by nature, and those jobs have been the gift that keeps on giving in every way, both professionally and personally. That said, China Beach and ER are about the same writing and producing teams, overlapping greatly. Hold on a second. Dogs? Are all the dogs here? Where's Winston? Okay. Sorry, I live in Hollywood and I heard coyotes, and I've got 3 dogs, so I have to make sure to put that out. Those shows, China Beach is my favorite, the most sort of powerful job I ever had, in that it was incredibly intellectual writing and really emotional stuff they gave me to do. And I'm not a trained actress, and I wasn't sure I was was going to be able to rise to the occasion. I was ultimately, I think, largely in part to the writing, and the writing being so intelligent and so it's just imbued with emotion, but also the actors that I worked across from, Mark Helgenberger and others, were so brilliant that if you just focus on them and say the words you're told to say, that emotion just happens because they're Dana Delaney, like incredible actresses, and they're the same people that did ER. So I got to do really heavy work, emotional work, which didn't happen necessarily in Chucky or 90210 for the most part.
Yeah.
So that the intellectual level of that writing and the award-winning level of that acting is something that I'm also super grateful to have been invited to.
So you're an actress that really loves to have the writing push your boundaries and explore different sides that you may or may not known you had.
I'm a fan of the writing supporting what they want me to do. It's very difficult to get emotional and be authentically emotional if the writing is superficial and cheesy. So, and if the actors across from you are not delivering, that's distracting and also difficult to get past. So yeah, of course, I'm just a fan of the writing doing my job for me. That because there's nothing better than that. If you just say the words and tell the truth, and it comes off great, yeah.
And flows off naturally. The
Yeah.
horror community has embraced you open arms. When you went, if you can remember, when you first met Don Mancini and you auditioned for Kyle in Child's Play 2, were you a fan of horror? Was it just another job? What were your feelings on the genre itself?
I was not a huge horror fan. The Exorcist was already under my belt, and it belongs, I think, in like the top 10 or 15 films of all time for me, of all genres. It's a really incredibly intense movie, and it's my favorite horror movie to this day. And it could never be remade because they would never let them do what happens in that film. They would never do it again. And and they took it seriously. Everybody in that cast, and that film was not treated like a horror film. It was treated like a drama, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, we're talking like the 80s horror films. Yeah, I'm a fan of the original Nightmare on Elm Street and the first Friday the 13th and the first Halloween. Those are great. They're iconic, awesome movies, and they're entertaining. Or they wouldn't have lasted the way they have. But that's not my genre. I'm more of an independent film and edgier, sort of quirkier movie fan. Certainly was then. It's opened up a lot since the 80s.
Oh yeah.
So and horror has come a really long way since then. I did a deep dive into the horror franchises, the big ones, when I was doing my 14 days of quarantine in Toronto last summer for Chucky. I was like, well, I get asked about horror all the time, and I don't think I'm necessarily super informed, or I don't have a really bookish sort of knowledge of that genre. I like films that are more, I'm not a big scare, a jump scare, slasher-y person in general.
You like the psychological stuff like me.
I do. I like The Strangers. I thought the sequel to The Strangers was equally awesome. But I watched the Hostel series. I watched the Final Destination series. I watched the Fear Street series. I watched a shit ton of fucking horror when I was in Canada. And takeaway, Hostel series is fucking brutal and awesome.
That's Eli Roth for you right there.
Craziness. And it's also fun to see actors that I know that I didn't know were in these things. Oh, I know you. Anyway, my takeaway was that I feel like horror deserves a category in the Golden Globes at the very least, if not the Oscars, because I think it's it's like the redheaded stepchild of movies, and I don't think it deserves that place anymore. The storytelling, the Conjuring series, all the Conjurings, like these movies draw classy actors. They're well written. The plot is not just like teenagers having sex, getting like stabbed in a fucking bunk bed. It's way more complex than that. And more importantly, I think the acting is so grueling. I think what they ask of these actors is so intense, and to maintain, like, I don't know that audiences understand how hard it is to be raw and emotional for long periods of time, be crying and screaming, being raped or being murdered or being
Mhm.
tortured, and all the things that make typically to women have to do incredibly hard, heavy lifting emotional work. I think it deserves a place of respect at this point. I think that
Absolutely.
actors are really delivering it, and I think they need to be recognized.
And filmmakers in the horror genre like to hold on to the saying that this is the most underappreciated genre in film and television. And well, when it comes to viewership and fans, uh, it's anything but. It's horror's at an all-time high. But I do agree with you. Where it is underappreciated is when it comes to awards, whether it's the Emmys, the Oscars, the Golden Globes, all of that. Very rarely do you see a horror television show or a movie, except for like Silence of the Lambs, get nominated, not yet alone win something.
But that Korean movie, what was it called? I forgot.
Train to Busan with the zombies.
No, no, the one that won the best feature, one best
Oh,
feature.
I can't remember the title right now. I know what you're talking about. Maybe my
I'm
head
so
is.
brain dead. I'm embarrassed. I love that movie. I thought it deserved to win, and it's arguably a horror movie.
Yeah,
So, and oh, good Lord, I'm so brain dead. The Korean television show.
there's been a lot of great
No, the one
horror.
that is the only one that did better than Chucky this season. Come on, Squid Game.
Squid Games on
So Squid
Netflix.
Game is a horror
Oh
series,
yeah,
doing very well, and I imagine it will get nominated for things. Come on, help me with this. The Korean one that won. It won Best Picture like three
my
years ago.
executive producer should be chiming in. He's watching, and he's like the
I can get my
excited
phone out and look.
Parasite.
Parasite, yes.
Yes,
But
there
I
he
think it
goes.
deserved that award.
Parasite.
I
Parasite.
love
Yeah.
Parasite. It was my favorite movie of the year. These are horror movies, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're psychological thrillers, but there's horror elements to them, and that I think the psychological thriller horror, like I'm hoping that more genuine horror films at least fall into that thriller category and
Me
are
too.
considered
Me
dramas,
too.
at least. So
I think that is its last frontier to conquer is the awards and to get the recognition in awards. Now, with Child's Play 2, your agent got you, I'm assuming, the audition. Had you seen the first Child's Play? Did you know what you were getting yourself into?
I didn't, and I did see it at some point. I don't know if I saw it before I had the audition, if I saw it before the second audition, or I saw it when I got the job. I definitely saw it before I started working. You have to remember it was 1989, and the only way you could see a movie like that was to go to drive your fat ass down to Blockbuster and hope that the one copy they had on VHS was on the shelf, and that whoever had it before you didn't have it out for 10 days, and. So
Uh,
it wasn't just click, 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 or pay three
no.
ninety nine on Amazon Prime and like video and get to watch it. It was a very different world then. I did see it though, and I loved it. I loved it. My favorite moment in it, I sort of tellingly, is that "fuck you" and that "what an ugly doll" in the elevator, and Chucky's like "fuck you." I I appreciated the comedy there. I think I'm not alone in that because the Chucky's comedy chops were vastly expanded by Child's Play 2. Um, and so I did like it. I still like it. I've watched them all, obviously at this point in time. And I think they all hold up. I made my mother watch them all with me this year, right before the series started airing, because she hadn't seen any of them except for mine. And they all hold up, and they
Oh
all
yeah.
have their merits. I mean, there's the two that are typically in the bottom are Child's Play 3 and Seed of Chucky. But they're both good. They both have incredible elements that really hold up. And John Waters, how can you say no to John Waters?
Well,
And what they also, when you watch them all in a row, what they reveal is the incredible resilience and flexibility of Don Mancini and his own vision for this character that he developed in college.
yeah.
To ride that wave of straight 80s horror, making Chucky funnier. Then Scream comes out and Bride and Seed, and he's doing that sort of meta, self-referential horror. And then when that became out of fashion, to go right back into Curse and do this like Southern Gothic horror, which
Mhm.
is perfect. And into Cult, and Cult's my favorite of the whole franchise. It looks like a Stanley Kubrick movie to me.
It does.
I like how icy and cold it is, and how clean the blue and the whites are against the blood. So I'm a huge fan of the entire franchise, unapologetically, and I think that the series, actually, despite being a huge fan of the whole franchise, I was a little bit concerned that Don could like take. He's only had to tell 10 hours of story over 33 years. That's a lot of time to think and stew and come up with ideas. To do 8 hours of story in 8 weeks is a whole different kettle of fish.
Absolutely.
And holy shit, did he fucking deliver?
Oh man, 4.5 million viewers per week. We had Fiona Dourif as our guest a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and it seems like you guys in the cast have really become like a family. She mentioned you, the tremendous amount of respect that she has for you, and I know when we met in Atlantic City, you mentioned Fiona as well. Is that how you would describe the cast behind the scenes? Have you guys sort of become like this big family?
I think we have been sort of tangentially a family, like with Dawn. If it's an octopus, Dawn is the head, and we're like the tentacles that reach out to the different pockets of the family. But the time we spent in Canada, the 2 months in Canada, I'd never spent so much time with Fiona or Jennifer. Alex, of course, I have, but Fiona and Jennifer, no. Hey, don't go outside. Hey, Hayden! Fuck. Hold on. Hayden!
Go get
sorry.
him. No, you can go get him. Don't want to get him by those coyotes.
Doggies, get in here. Hayden!
They're cute doggies. There's one, two.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Dog door's closed. I can't get out now.
Are they all accounted for?
What's that?
Are they all accounted for?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm,
good.
I'm dog sitting a third dog, so God forbid somebody else's dog gets eaten by a Cody. So, what was I saying? Oh, the family.
Yeah.
So Alex and I family for sure. Dawn and I family. That was exponentially ratcheted up though for the time we spent in Canada, largely because neither Alex nor I nor Jennifer nor Fiona had a whole lot of time on the schedule. The kids and their parents had the biggest chunks of time on set. The rest of us had a fuck ton of downtime, and during that downtime, we got to sort of solidify friendships and get all that much closer.
Okay, yeah.
Don is a really loyal guy. Almost to a fault. Like he's super sentimental and super bondy, like in the best possible way. And he, like, it all comes from the top, So if the person at the top is feeling like this is a family and spending every weekend with either us or with the kids, taking the kids on things or whatever, that infuses the whole production with that energy. So
now, when you found out that they were doing a TV show on Chucky, was it also the same time you found out they wanted you to be a part of it? What was the timeline? Did you hear that it was coming to TV and then you got to call? Or how did that all work out?
No. We're family, so the talking happens before this. Don's not surprising anybody with anything. He talks to you all the time. So I knew that based on, what Don said, but also the Alex showing up at the end of Curse and having the bigger part in Cult, and then my showing up at the end of Cult was teeing Kyle up to have a bigger part in either the next feature that would happen or the show. I knew about the show for a long time, and I knew that I would be part of it. I didn't know what level or what the story would be, but I knew that I was in it. That's why if you Google my responses to when the Bastard Chucky movie that came out, when you Google my name in that film, you'll see a bunch of headlines like Christine Elise loses her fucking mind, Christine Elise rages against, like Christine Elise fuck. Every title was more and more like I was unhinged in my reaction to this other movie that happened. And I did a small podcast and I said what I said. I'm not saying I didn't say it. I said it and I meant it. and I would repeat it again if it was worth repeating. But the reason I said it was, first of all, you don't reinvent a franchise that's not dead in the water. This
Hmm.
franchise is not sitting there like Psycho 30, 40 years later waiting to be reinvented. And also, I already knew the television show was in development. So for somebody else to come through and make another film could totally have derailed the TV show, which I
Yeah.
couldn't say in any of those interviews. But that was where my vitriol was sourced, so or was born. So, and I didn't even know what way to root for that film. Like, okay, so this film is happening while we're in product in development of a TV show. Do I hope the movie fails or do I hope the movie succeeds? I don't even know which thing would
Yeah.
be how that will tip the studio. Are they gonna, if the movie was huge, are they going to go, oh, fuck it, they took the baton, they have it, there's no room, they've usurped our power? Or are they going to, or would they say, oh my God, there's a huge appetite for Chucky, we have to get on this fast because there's not enough Chucky for everybody out there? Or the opposite, yeah, you know, it tanks and they go, oh, everyone hates Chucky, fuck it, he's dead, Chucky's dead in the water. So, or it tanked and they go, oh, that sucks. That means they only love our Chucky. Like it's all these different scenarios. I don't even know which one to root for. And what my primary thing that I was rooting for was that Don Mancini's TV show happened. So, and it did.
It did. It did. And did it surprise you? You guys got done filming, it aired, you started seeing the numbers. Did it surprise you the viewership that this new show has started accumulating?
I don't know numbers. That's not my wheelhouse. I don't really know what those things
I
mean
mean,
unless
it ranged, like I said, about an average of about 4.5 million viewers per week. And in today's
I don't
world,
know. Oh, okay. In today's world, what?
where you're saturated with content, with digital
Yeah.
streaming and whatnot, to pull in that kind of audience every week is impressive.
So I don't know what the numbers are. Like I know what they were, but I don't know what they could have been or what. Like I don't have a bar for that. I don't like that's not my business. You know, I just
So,
my business is to do a good job and then try to promote it as well as I can. But I know that the numbers were good because of the headlines that were coming out about it. So um, I wasn't surprised. I was really gratified
yeah.
because the show I'd seen the first couple episodes in Don's hotel room as he was cutting them while we were still in Canada, and I knew how great it was going to be, and I saw how expensive it looked, and I saw how amazing the kids are, and I was super gratified that fans. My sort of fear, the brilliance of Don cannot be contested. My fear was that because you know the fans they can be very like they don't like the different incarnations of how Chucky looks in the
They're
various films.
faithful. Yeah, they don't let a
And
lot of stuff
everyone
slip.
there's a lot. Well, no, I don't want to say that things slip, but fans have very strong opinions and they
Hmm.
have very strong expectations, and they can get sort of reactive when they don't get what they thought they were going to get. And having just gone to the 90210 reboot, where fans didn't get what they thought they were going to get, I think from my perspective, they got something way better than they should have even hoped for.
Hmm.
But they didn't get what they thought they were going to get, and they stomped their little feet and they walked away. And the show didn't get to do a second season because fans just didn't give it a second. So I was afraid that Chucky was going to have that same experience. I was afraid that asking old school Chucky fans to wait 4 episodes to see anybody they recognize except for Chucky might have turned them off.
Hmm.
And I'm so proud. I'm so fucking proud of Chucky fans for not just hanging in there, but for genuinely falling in love with and embracing these new characters. These kids deserve it. The parents, all those, every Devin Sawa and
Hmm.
like Alexa Doig, everybody is so fucking brilliant, and the kids are so their performances are so rich and emotional and like complex.
Oh yeah, they're great.
um, they're great, but that doesn't mean fans will respond to it or give it time, and they did. So bravo, Chucky fans, for hanging in there and like really loving every minute of it, not just like holding your breath for Jennifer and Alex.
When you were going to reprise your role on this TV show, you being Kyle in back in 1989, 1990, what elements did you bring to Kyle? Uh, Obviously, a lot of time has passed. Her experiences back then with Chucky have shaped who she is today. What was your approach on how you were going to bring Kyle to the screen?
I'm not that sophisticated an actor. I'm just not that sophisticated. I I just like look unless the role requires some really deep soul searching or some like emotional work that I'm not comfortable with. I'm just kind of try to be myself and say the words in a situation that sounds the most authentic, but coming from a place as close to me as I can manage. That's always been how I've approached things. I have never had a role that required any research or any, like. Yeah, I played a fireman. Yeah, I played doctors, but I got my job on ER the day I got the job at 7 p.m. at night and was on set 6 a.m. the next morning. There's no time to research what like it's like to
Hmm.
be a med student, and I wouldn't have had I had the opportunity anyway. Because what the fuck? All you are is a person in a situation. Like you don't. There's no way to prepare to be killed or chased by a killer doll. There's no way to. There's nobody to interview about that. It's just pretend. And so for me as an untrained actor, I've just the best thing I can do is bring as much of me to every role as I possibly can. I sort of say I'm in the Jack Nicholson camp of actors, where Jack Nicholson is Jack Nicholson just in different situations.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I'm a Jack Nicholson because he's one of the best actors that ever lived in all of time, but he's a very different actor than a Meryl Streep who becomes invisible in her roles. And so I am not trained. I'm not that sophisticated. So I just come into
Well,
it
you're a
and
damn good actor, though.
I try to make the words sound true. That's all I can do.
Well, what are your feelings on the writing for the your character Kyle in the TV show? Do you like
I'm
where they took her?
I'm super excited because I know Don will run his ideas past you for years before the thing actually is being shot. So 1,000 ideas come and go. You know he'll cycle things through you and say, I'm going to do this with you, I'm going to do this with you, and then it doesn't even happen. He could have made Kyle be like some real estate agent,
Hmm.
suburban housewife with kids, and that would have sucked. I don't think that's where she should land. I don't think that's interesting, given the nature of the show. The fact is, the show is not grounded in reality. We've got a supernaturally possessed doll, and we've got Jennifer Tilly, possessed by a doll. Like, it's not grounded in reality. So why make a character who's now 17 then and is now 57 or whatever she 50 whatever she is
Hmm.
50 um why ground her in some boring reality? Why not let her be this, like Alex and Andy and Kyle are, be these sort of vigilante warriors, Pulp Fiction style badasses? There's room for that in the show,
Hmm.
and I'm really grateful that Dawn went that way and didn't go like didn't go more conservatively. I'm happy with. I think that's more fun.
If you had to pick, obviously the success of Child's Play, Chucky the TV show, I mean, a huge part. It's all Don Mancini. What would you say it is about Don that you see in him that you haven't seen in other filmmakers? That he has that it factor that can take something and turn it into a success, like the Chucky franchise.
Well, primarily in the case of the Chucky franchise, I don't think any other franchise can boast that the same person wrote every single film and then helmed if there were a television show,
Yeah.
that he was the showrunner of that. So I don't want to shit talk any other filmmakers because a lot of them had their art taken out of their hands and given to somebody else. And who's to say what would have happened with other franchises had the person that initially envisioned it stayed at the helm the entire time? I have to, that said, I have to say, I think it's a rare man that can. I already covered what I think Don did as far as rolling with the times
Hmm.
and changing with the tone, and even more tricky. Like it's Freddy or it's Michael Myers, and they're like the killer, and you know why they're the killer, and they kill people. But Don has all this cartoony stuff in there to deal with. He's got to deal with not just Chucky and he's can possess a doll and all the doll baby children stuff, but also there's the Jennifer Tilly stuff and the Glenn and Glenda and all of these. That's a lot of fantasy
Yeah.
to keep alive and then grounded back in this television show, which is grounded sort of. It's grounded. It's not camp. Chucky's funny, but it's not camp. The show is serious, and everybody in it is in earnest. And no single storyline that Dawn's ever written and ever broadcast is being pretended it's not there. Don't pretend, Glenn and Glenda don't exist. Pretend whatever. Andy didn't go to military school or, these things. So to keep a story going that has so many incredibly wild tangents within it is incredibly it's masterful on Dawn's part. So
Exactly. Now, you mentioned earlier that when you got started, you wanted to be a film actress. Uh, Now in your career, especially with the state of TV, how it's like become like the new gold standard, do you lean more towards television as opposed to films? Do you like the format, the pace? TV is done at a much quicker pace. You got to spit out episode after episode. What is your opinion now as opposed to what it was when you started out?
my opinion changed 20 years ago. I like the fast pace of television. The way the shooting pace of television doesn't bother me. That's what I'm used to. I've done very few films in my life. I'm mostly a TV actress. I like the fast pace. I like move, move, move. So that's never been a problem for me. And when I wanted to be a film actress, people like David Lynch and were making feature films, and there were art house films, and Nicolas Cage did edgy shit like Vampire's Kiss, which is in my top 5 of all time. And that film world doesn't exist anymore.
No.
There's no movie industry except for superheroes for the most part, or some studio here and there will make some, obvious grab for Academy Award sort of heavy material that's historically important or whatever, for award season. But there's no real film industry anymore. It's just big budget stuff that I don't watch for the most part. I'd be happy to be in one. Don't get me wrong, but that's not what I watch. I watch edgy shit, and it used to be that films were edgy and TV was horse shit.
Yeah.
And now movies are horse shit and TV is edgy. So of course,
it seems like TV is taking the lead on pushing the boundaries in any motion picture. So how did it all start for you? Your love of acting. You just described how you go into every role, not a lot of research. You just go read the script and just lay it out there. So you obviously have natural talent because you bring it every single time. Did you always want to be an actress from way back? How did acting come to you?
Acting came to me because I had to find some way to be an artist in my life. And everybody I knew growing up, I'm from Boston. Everybody I knew in Boston, I'm from the punk rock world. I was punk rock in like 79, 80, 83, early punk rock. Everyone I knew was a musician. That's not something that I ever wanted to do. And I certainly was not presentational enough to be. I had a band for 5 seconds where I was the drummer, but I was too afraid to play drums in front of the other girls. So it was fucking a waste of. I'm a super shy person. And music just didn't even appear to me to be something that you could make a living at either, even in high school. I knew that's an impossible way to make a living. So I thought I'd be a vet. Then I was like, oh, but you don't just deal with happy puppies and happy cats. You also put them to sleep or deal with trauma, and that's not going to be a fun way to spend life. So what else can I do with artistic skills? And my mother's like, maybe you should be an architect. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll think about that. But all the while, I was a huge movie fan. I was a big fan of the 40s, the classics, and the Humphrey Bogarts and the Marilyn Monroes and the film noir in particular. And I collected Pulp Fiction 30s paperbacks in high school. I still have the whole collection. I read them almost exclusively, as my recreational reading was all 30s Pulp Fiction, 30s to 60s Pulp Fiction. And then I saw Blade Runner, and I was like, oh, look at Blade Runner. That's like it's film noir turned on its head and made
Hmm.
it's in color and it's modern now and it's a whole reinvention of that genre. So I thought, oh, that's what I'll do. I'll become a director and I'll take that baton and I will go to film school and become a director and I'll make film noir the next big thing. I went to BU, Boston University, for a year. It seemed stupid to go to film school in Boston when there was no film industry, so I thought I'd move to Los Angeles. I did it at 19. Thought I'd live here for a year and establish California residency at the time before Ronald Reagan changed these things. California state schools were like $600 a semester, whereas BU was 12,000. And I thought I'd go to school basically for free out here. But I moved here and took the year, but I got a job on Rodeo Drive as a cashier, making $6 an hour, and had to work 60 hours a week to pay my bills. And 2.5 years later, I was still a cashier.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna fucking die in retail, and what a waste of life. And how can I possibly still get involved in the film world with no training and no skill and no talent? And then I was like, well, maybe if I want to be a director, I should take some after work at like 8 o'clock night classes, acting classes happened, and I had a great deal. So I was like, oh, if I'm going to be a director and I'm going to direct actors, I should know what an actor does. I should know even how to speak to them. And I can do that after work for a minimal amount of money. And I did that and I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And then I thought, fuck, I'm 21 or whatever, 22, and I look 15, and people that can't act make a living all the time. I don't see why I can't be one of them. And so I thought I'd try to be an actor and then learn my way around the set and learn things that are to be learned on the set, And it worked out. And then once I got on the set and saw what directors do, I was completely intimidated and thought, yeah, being an actor is the better way to go. Really, I didn't, at the time, my gender wasn't something I even considered. But in retrospect, for me to have pursued being a director in my 20s as a woman in the 80s or 90s even would have been a fucking farce. So I would be still doing that and not having made anything. So thank God I chose acting, but it wasn't a passion for acting. It was just a passion to be involved
In film,
in art.
in the arts. How about directing now? Is that something that you want to try more or
Well,
want
I
to
did
do?
the short film. I did the short film, right? And that was a super controlled thing. It's called Bathing in the Single Girl. It's on that website, bathingbook.com. And it was fun, but I didn't direct anybody else. It was me and a camera guy, and not even all the time was there a sound guy. It was like 2 of us or 3 of us here at any point in time. So it wasn't really directing in that I didn't have to direct a crew. I didn't have to direct other actors. I didn't have to, get a day done on a schedule, or I didn't have people breathing down my neck with millions of dollars of their money. I'm bleeding for them. So I don't think that I'm necessarily qualified to be a director, except for the environment where a lot of actors become directors, which is if you're on a TV show for a while and the product really well and the crew really well, and they can trust you to direct an episode. A lot of actors make their way into directing that way, and I don't foresee myself becoming a director anyway, except that way. I would definitely need the soft bosom of a warm crew to make that happen.
That is amazing. Christine, you are fucking amazing. You really are. When we met in Atlantic City and I came up to you, because you had quite the line, and I'm like, aren't you the hot thing? And you're like, that's because I'm a badass. I'm awesome. And you are. You are awesome. This has been a fascinating conversation. And it comes down to talent. You have talent. That's why acting really worked out for you. And you were awesome as Kyle. You were awesome as Emily. You were awesome in every role you've done. And I'm just looking forward to seeing more stuff with you in it. And the stuff that you auditioned for today, I hope you get it. I hope to see more of it. Just the last question before we go. Are you satisfied with how season 1 of Chucky ended?
Okay. First of all, I know this is controversial. I was really floored by the whole Jennifer Fiona story.
Yeah.
That talk about shit hitting the fan. What a lot for those women to do. And God bless Dawn. Like when I was leaving Canada in the summer on the last brunch we had together, Don said, "What's your favorite part of coming back and playing Kyle?" And I said, "My favorite part of playing Kyle is that you let her be a fucking badass." Because I'm, as a human being, I'm 50. I'll be 57 in 2 months, and 57-year-old women don't get cast playing vigilante badasses.
Mm-hmm.
And Jennifer is my age too, and a lot of women my age don't get to play vampy sex pots. And Fiona's younger; she's like 40 or something, but like she's playing four roles. She's playing Nika possessed by Chucky, Nika possessed by Chucky pretending to be Nika, and then Charles Lee Ray. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff for women of a certain who aren't 25 to be gifted in what's turned out to be a pretty important TV show.
Oh yeah.
So um, yeah, I mean, I'm satisfied. I wish I had more to do in season one. I hope I survive to season two and have more to do with knowing Don and his loyalty and the fact that there's time travel
Mm-hmm.
in the show.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody has to die forever. It's kind of has almost a soap opera element to it where you can, like, because we're seeing Charles Lee Ray in the 70s and stuff. So whether Kyle lives or not doesn't mean she's gone.
Now I know you guys don't see Brad on the set. He's in his own little recording studio doing anything. What are your feelings towards Brad Dourif's contribution to this franchise?
First of all, I was a huge Brad Dourif fan from it's not just Cuckoo's Nest, but the other film he did he plays like an evil preacher. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but I was a huge Brad Dourif fan when I got the job in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had to rehearse my lines with him, I was so fucking starstruck I couldn't even stand it. Like he has not disappointed. He remains an all-time classic character actor that I can't believe. I do panels and sit next to him. I can't believe it's fucking unbelievable to me that Jennifer and Brad are both Academy Award nominees. Like
Mm-hmm.
so Chucky's not just bringing some schlubs to set,
No.
And for Brad, I know that Brad is tired of playing bad guys, and I think he said publicly a couple times that he's not going to play any more bad guys except for Chucky. So I think he brings gravitas to it. I think that Chucky would maybe be campier and less menacing in the hands of a lesser actor,
Mm-hmm.
especially given that Brad has ridden the whole ride from start to finish through all the funny and the not funny. A lesser actor could lose his way, and Brad never does. So I'm super grateful for him.
My favorite Brad Dourif movie, and this surprises some people, is The Exorcist 3.
I know
He
that
played
scene on
the-
the fucking bed.
Oh my God, his monologue with George C. Scott, brilliant. I mean, just brilliant.
It's brilliant. And just know, I'm not even going to get this right, but I apparently told the story when he shot that. They didn't like what he did. They cast somebody else. Then they came back and used him. But it is a devastating fucking monologue. It's ridiculous and should be a film in and of itself.
Yeah. I mean, he made that movie. He was just absolutely chilling. Christine, we're out of time. I want to thank you so much. This has been such a damn good fun hour.
So sorry, I fucked up earlier.
No. What happened is we got you on. That's all that matters. I'm glad we had this conversation. Any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
No, just be patient, kids. Don't make any assumptions about what's coming next season, and keep the faith, because Don ultimately brings it all back around.
And he surprises everybody. Thank you to Christine Elise McCarthy. Thank you to all our viewers for tuning in. On behalf of Christine and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Good night, everybody.
Good night.